People ask about writer's block, and they've asked me about writer's block, and I know writer's block exists. I would prefer to call it getting stuck. You can get stuck on the very first page and not know where that book's going to go and just be sitting there looking at a blank page. A lot of writers call that writer's block. But I can get stuck right in the middle of a book. To me, that's one of the hardest places. The beginning and the end often just flow, but you get in the middle and it's like, okay, what are we going to do next and what's going to happen next? So that to me is even more critical than that very first page. Now, I have found that when people put pressure on writers to write, you have to meet a deadline. I have to have a book a year. That forces writers into writer's block because they're forced. And writing is a creative process, and it's a process that is free-flowing, and you can't force it. And so if you do that, it shuts down. And I think that happens to some writers. Fortunately, I have never been in a position where somebody has said, you have to have a book written by a certain time. I give myself deadlines. So how do I deal with getting stuck when I do get stuck? For me, the best thing is to get away from the project, go do something else. I will go swim for an hour or so, go take a walk in the park, get your dog or your cat or whomever you walk with to go with you, and just think about something else. If you go walk and only think about your book and ask yourself, okay, so what is she going to do next, and what am I going to do next, and I've got to get this resolved, you'll never be able to do it. You have to be able to let your mind go somewhere completely alien in order to get unstuck. And I'll give you an example, which new writers perhaps can relate to. If any of you work crossword puzzles, or you work any kind of puzzle, and you sit down and you start working it, and you're just going along and everything's fine, and then all of a sudden you get to one that you just can't think of it. I mean, you're like, okay. And you sit there and you struggle and and you finally say, I'm out of here. I'm going to go do something else. And you go do something else for like 30 minutes to an hour, and all of a sudden, boom, it comes to you. You go back and boom, you finish that puzzle. That is exactly the same thing on a larger scale that happens to me when I get stuck.